This is the Panasonic streaming 4K Blu-ray player. My first impression lands on a very clear idea. It looks plain, it feels light, and it focuses all its effort where it matters most: the picture and the sound coming off a disc. If you want a flashy metal chassis, this isn't that. If you want reference quality playback without paying flagship money, this is squarely in that lane. The design leans practical. At around 5.3 pounds and roughly 16.9 by 8.06 by 2.5 inches, it's compact for a dedicated player. The face is simple: a flip-down door, a small basic display that shows elapsed time, and a front USB port. In my opinion, it's not built to impress on the shelf. It's built to disappear in the rack and get the signal right. The remote tells the same story. It's easy enough to use, but it's not backlit, and that Netflix button sits way too close to where your thumb naturally moves. In a dark room, that's a small but real annoyance. Key features that matter start with the video processing. Panasonic's HCX engine is the star. You pop in a 4K disc and you get crisp detail, clean edges, and natural color without that overly processed, edgy look. When a disc stores color in a compressed way, 420, the player has to rebuild it to full color, 444, before it hits your TV. That's where the HCX work shows. Skin tones look lifelike, foliage doesn't turn into mush, and fine textures hold together. From my experience with Panasonic's approach to processing, it tends to favor a film-like presentation instead of hyping sharpness, and that pays off across both premium 4K discs and older Blu-rays. Even regular 1080p movies upscale beautifully to 4K, so your existing library gets a lift without fiddling. HDR handling is another big win. HDR is what pushes brighter highlights, deeper shadows, and more color volume. The UB820 supports HDR10, HDR10+, Dolby Vision, and HLG, and it automatically switches to match the disc. That means you don't have to jump into menus to enable Dolby Vision for one title and then turn it off for the next. It just plays what's on the disc the way it should. There's also an HDR optimizer that's surprisingly helpful. Here's the simple version. Some 4K discs have imperfect brightness info, and some displays, especially projectors or older TVs, can struggle with extreme highlights or deep shadows. You might see blown-out bright areas or muddy dark scenes. The optimizer does its own tone mapping based on what you tell it about your display type, which can balance the image and bring back detail. In my opinion, this is especially useful for projectors, where tone mapping is a big part of whether HDR looks amazing or just okay. If you have a newer high-end TV with killer tone mapping, you might prefer to leave the optimizer off. The nice thing is you can try both and stick with what looks best to your eyes. On the audio side, it's straightforward and strong. It bitstreams Dolby Atmos and DTS-X to your receiver or soundbar, and it handles Dolby True HD and DTS HD master audio cleanly. There's a full set of 7.1 analog outputs if you're feeding older gear without HDMI, and a 192 kHz 32-bit DAC to make those outputs count. For music files, it plays DSD, FLAC, ALAC, and WAV at high resolutions from USB or disc. It won't play SSCD or DVD audio disc, so if those formats are important to you, take note. For movies, though, the sound pipeline is everything you expect from a serious disc player. Connectivity is a highlight. The twin HDMI outputs are a lifesaver if your receiver can't pass 4K HDR. Send video directly to the TV and send audio to the receiver. That's the cleanest path and helps avoid handshake headaches. There's optical audio, Ethernet, a fast rear USB 3.0 port for big files, and the front USB for quick plugs. Voice Assist hooks into Google Assistant or Alexa through your network, but I treat that as a nice-to-have rather than a reason to buy. Now the trade-offs. Streaming apps are bare bones and feel dated. Netflix, Prime Video, YouTube, that's about it, and performance can be clunky. I've long been skeptical about streaming inside disc players, and my stance doesn't change here. A small box like a Roku, Apple TV, or Fire TV will give you faster navigation, better app support, and fewer headaches. Local file playback is also limited. If your MKV files have lossless tracks like Dolby True HD with Atmos or DTS HDMI, the player won't deliver those from files. It falls back to the lossy core. If you care about building a local library with full fidelity audio, this isn't your all-in-one solution. In my opinion, that's the biggest reason to think of the UB820 as a disc specialist rather than a media hub. Day-to-day usage is smooth where it counts. Discs load quickly. You can enable quick start if you want near-instant wake-up, and the drive is quiet while playing. Menus look old-fashioned, and some settings are buried, and you might need to stop playback to toggle certain options like choosing Dolby Vision versus HDR10+ when both exist on a disc. It's not elegant, but once you dial in your preferences, you won't need to spend much time there. Reliability on difficult triple-layer UHDs is a big plus. Many players trip over those at some point. The UB820 has a solid reputation for getting through them cleanly. It's perfect for anyone who values physical media quality and wants a player that just nails the signal. If you run a projector, the HDR optimizer alone can justify it. If you have an older AVR that can't pass HDR, those dual HDMI outputs make setup simple and clean. If you've invested in a good TV or projector and a capable sound system, this player lets that investment shine. From my experience with home theater setups, pairing a dedicated streamer for apps and this Panasonic for discs gives the best of both worlds. You keep the UI snappiness and streaming app selection you want, while relying on the UB820 for the part it does best. Reference-grade disc playback with universal HDR support and excellent tone mapping tools. I'd recommend this for movie lovers who still buy discs and want the most consistent, natural picture they can get without stepping up to the more expensive, heavy chassis models. If you need a single box to handle streaming and local files with full lossless audio, this isn't it. If you want a quiet, fast, flexible disc player with serious video chops, it's a standout. In conclusion, the Panasonic DP-UB820-K doesn't try to be everything. It aims to be the most reliable, best-looking path from a 4K disc to your screen and speakers. In my opinion, it succeeds where it matters, and the compromises are easy to work around with a separate streamer. That's why it still gets recommended so often for serious home theaters. I will leave all the information about the Panasonic streaming 4K Blu-ray player in the comments. I hope to see you again in the following videos.